I was listening to Terence Mckenna earlier, and it dawned on me that he spoke forth my intuition. Small terror in the Garfa. And as I've said before, it's not only real, but it's so real. I might be right about Ruby. I might be. My intuition, my intuition is in fact that I am right about Ruby. About us forming a family and being one together. It's just a bit. It's not a bit. I'm amazed, but I do not want to be amazed. I need to pay attention. I need to pay attention because this feels revelatory. Revelatory feels as though a revelation is in reincarnate origin in me. It feels as though what has once been is trying to ignite itself in and through and outside me. So many dimensions that my verbal capacity does not suffice in its present moment. Perhaps, maybe I'm wrong and I need to pay further attention and delve even deeper than I am at this very moment as I'm speaking. I'm not wrong. I wasn't wrong. And I'm not wrong now. And there's something about it that's hard to believe, and I think that's propositional fact that I do believe it. Because I can't believe that I actually do believe it. Because I didn't think I would ever have enough merit or abstract and material credentials so that I may feel justified in my intuitions. The discovery of undiscovered lands that is familiar and unexplored, charted. Never has there been man's print on such lands. Yet its familiarity is known. It is recognized. But in itself, as land rediscovered, for it has happened before, is in fact not been printed upon by us as mankind, as people. Terence Mckenna, I heard him say, I hope I have this right, at least the gist of it, so that I can convey what I just fucking heard. You may be in such states, induced through psychedelic means, to such degree that you would reach points in which anything could indeed happen, and that is very literal. It is in no way figurative. It is very literal, and it is very real. In fact, it is so real that you are so awake that you cannot rest, for your undying and relentless spirit that has lived and clawed and scratched its way for survival will not allow it, no matter the identity in which you in present incarnate. And so, magic is real. The statistical probability completely dissolves when in such states, when reaching upon such certain high degrees of these psychedelically induced states. The world could rip apart. The oceans could dry up. The world could be engulfed in cataclysmic tsunamis and eruptions by volcanoes, and wind at speeds unmeasured and unimagined. It stretches your capacity for imagination so high that you really feel as though you cannot recognize who you once were, because who you once were was never something so stratospherically embedded into what is true. The layers of reality which have a synchronicity to them. Since you were never intertwined with it, you will not recognize what was. You will not recognize who you were, because you never were, in some sense, relative to who you are now. And that may be the dead zone, the dead end, when walking upon a fine line in on an unknown bridge. I was looking at my dog earlier, one of my dogs, black one, the only black one, and I was looking at her. She came to me, I was saying Jesus a few times. It felt as though the abstract and the material, or this material plane of reality, this one-dimensional reality in some sense, they touched, and I could verbalize what it is that is in my head. And I would say, my Father Jesus, my Father God, you are real and it is true. My dog came then once. My dog came then once. Moments later, she walked to me, just her. I have 3 others, but she came up to me, and I looked at her, and I got closer to her face, and she may have been sitting down, and I felt this, maybe for the first time. I felt that it could be so, that she could be transformed into an Egyptian being with a voluminous amount of musculature and with anatomically similar, human anatomically similar figure. So they would transform into this, only her, she would transform into this Egyptian cat in some sense, dog, and she would have the exact anatomical structure as a human being, and she would transform right in front of me. So it wouldn't be as though she went behind the wall, came back, and was another thing. She would literally, through flesh and bone, be incarnated in front of me in a transformative manner, and that would scare the living shit out of me. And she could grab my face and smash it into the floor, and I would cease. And she was smiling. She was just, just like a dog. And at first I was kind of convinced it might be. At first I was kind of convinced it might be Jesus' way, my Lord Father God, His way of communicating with me, because I want to fly, and that might sound retarded, and it's real. And for the first time, maybe, it felt like I was being heard, whilst also I was understanding that I am being recognized as one on the path that is righteous, if I should dare say. How? But when I looked at my dog, and the image came into my mind, which felt vividly real, and I'm not on drugs, so that's really something too. That it's so vivid, and I don't have any psychoactive substances that could alter my state of mind through organic compounds. Anyway, the point is, it's not influenced by any organic compounds, or synthetic for that matter, unless you want to count the audio of me listening to Terence Mckenna and that activating that, if you want, or being a gateway, being a gateway This is what I mean by lacking the verbal fluency that is required to articulate the images that are present in my mind, and not only images, because I am thinking in words right now. I'm thinking somewhat of images, somewhat. I'm thinking a little bit in images, but it's really mostly words. Like almost completely, I'm thinking in words. So by lacking words, I'm lacking even cognitive function in some sense, because there's just not. There's so many doors that I can't even see, and I know they're there, but I can't see them because I lack the verbal fluency. And it's not to say that it cannot be articulated. It's very much a fault of mine, because hearing Terence Mckenna verbalize my intuition is incredible. Or it's incredible that it is credible. It is so that you can reach such state, as I was mentioning earlier. This is going back, but I'm also moving forward. That you can reach a state induced through hallucinogenic substances that the statistical probability dissipates through such extremes, if you want to say extremes, because what constitutes extremes if it is boundless? Can you reach somewhere that is extreme if there's no limit? And the answer then becomes the relative instead of absolute. And so as I was saying, one could fly this. I could be on the camera, perhaps. Yeah, I could be on the camera, because it could happen. It could so happen that right now, as I am speaking, my flesh may be removed, and I may be exposed to the skin, and I may scream and screech in such a way that the devil in itself would go back to the eons before, when it was first banished, because of such traumatic reminiscence through the visual of me seeing me, whoever I am. For my name does not believe that a tsunami could come on that wall, on this camera. A visual may be seen that a tsunami would come flowing through, and all would cease here in this moment, in these moments, or in this moment. And it is the kind of thing that you cannot argue, because you weren't there. You wouldn't. It's like if right now there was an ice glacier, a pool right there. Just imagine a pool right there, and it is filled with ice, and it's barely, it's almost completely solidified, and it's mostly in its flowing state. However, the upper top layer is solidified, but you can still crack it and you can jump in and it's just freezing water. And if I did that right now, being in this heat, although I'm not in any way really, at least right now as I'm talking, I'm paying almost no attention at all to the heat whatsoever. It feels kind of nice actually, if I do pay attention. But if I'm not paying attention, it doesn't even register in some sense. But if I were to jump into that glacier right now, it might be incredibly stupid because I might just fucking die. And it would be like that, but not even, because right now I'm still in a comfortable position, so I could entertain the stupid ass idea of jumping into that frozen pool. But you are in such a state that you are not regarding the psychedelic state. You would be in such an a stratospherically different degree relative to that circumstance, the one I just gave regarding the pool, that you wouldn't, my example, my analogy does not suffice, because it is indeed in such a more astronomically difference, and that is literal, astronomically. It is in such an astronomically different realm that you just wouldn't do that, because it's not, you're trying to fuse two games together without knowing the rules of either. And magic is real. A safe could follow me, and that is literally true. And Terence Mckenna articulated this. He articulated my intuition into being in a verbal manner. And so I need to try psychedelics, because that's right now on a very perishable line, in the sense that if I should take my focus out of this thought process right now that I am communicating to you, I could lose this state if I stopped paying attention. And I could go play with my dogs, or I could ignore it, and I could do it because I'm in a comfortable situation right now, and I'm not influenced by any psychedelic substances. So what has come out of this spoken attempt of verbalizing my intuition, of verbalizing my accredited intuition, accredited by Terence Mckenna. Is out of the raw form of my mind, without any psychedelic interference, as much as I would like to, but so it is real, and I was right, or I am right, and I don't feel arrogant about it, which is one would say be careful about walking that line, maybe, or at least as a thought in the back of your mind, or in the forefront of your mind. And you could justifiably do that. However, this isn't the same domain. It's a different game and different rules and means of analysis. Means of analysis are required. And you might say, well, now you're really so arrogant that you will ignore it by finding a false adventure. And look, I don't know. And that's looking so the phone doesn't fall again. It gave me a security might have been right before I started recording, but maybe also during the recording. That I felt security to a certain degree. I felt security to a certain degree. That me and Ruby could happen. Not as who we are today, but who we could become in unity as one. And only then could it be true. And only then. No exception. Unless you want help. Which is also a possibility. So, security in what should and what should not. And how to. And how. A why and how. A why to have and a how to bear. As Viktor Frankl. Ruby tiene razón. So do I. Que Ruby tiene más. My intuitions are right. Yeah, let's walk in a circle. integration has come about. And wholeness is now a means to an endless journey that I have stepped forth upon. My feet have touched the sacred ground. For it I will be flayed, or exalted. For it I will be humbled, or I will be exalted, or flayed. I mustn't forget it, but in order to remember, I need to understand what it is. Otherwise, I won't remember, because why would I? And what do you mean by not forgetting? I mean continuing the path that you are on. Do not distrust your intuitions. They're the only thing that has ever led you right. They may not always lead you right, but they're the only thing that ever has. Do not betray it. Do not betray Ruby. Do not betray yourself. Do not betray the holy existence. Do not betray the Holy Father. Risk it all being burned alive. So when you die, so that you would die, and so that as a consequence of dying, you wouldn't have to die when you have to die. Now let me say the quote properly. If you die before you die, then when you die, you don't have to die, and that is it. You're willing to risk it for that. You're willing to die before you die, so that when you die, you don't have to die, and that is right. We can end it there for today, for now, for this recording. Thank you.